The last part of cookie and session topic is that we're going to implement a login feature for a website. As you know, that login is a must for most website. So user needs a username and password and maybe a Captcha to log in to access some secret or some sensitive data. Now, without login, we should not provide some JSP page or HTML page to the public. Okay, so before we jump to IntelliJ, I want to show you what a complete project look like once we have it done. So on this page, I showed you the correct username and password, and don't do this once you go to production, okay? But in case you forget it during development, you can always put the username and password you stored in database. So I'm going to put username, Bingyang, and password is 123456, the strongest password in the world. Also, this is a Captcha that generated by our server, and so our JSP page requested, and we got this image. So I'm going to type 5xb2. The case is not important, and I'm going to log in. So once I log in, so the servlet will bring me to a success page. It says login success and welcome, and guess what? The server knows who I am. So basically, Bingyang is my username. There it will print Bingyang here, and there is a link to secret. Okay, and only a logged in user can view the secret. So if I click secret, and it will show the secret. Okay, so ignore the first one. That's not true. But the second, third, they're all true. Okay, so this is our goal. We're going to implement this using JavaScript, session, and cookie. Let me show you a flowchart. It's not really a flowchart, but simply a PowerPoint chart about this login process. So here is the entire process. We're going to start from number 1. So the number here represents the order here, as you can see. Well, the first request comes from the login.JSP page. So the page is requesting a Captcha picture, if you remember that pink Captcha picture. And this request goes to a servlet called Captcha code servlet. And the responsibility of this servlet is to generate a Captcha code, which is randomly pick 4 alphanumeric letters, and then paint it in a picture, all right, and save this picture back to the front end so the user can see it on the login.jsp. Now, in the meantime, this servlet will also save a string, that has the 4 alphanumeric into the session object. If you remember that, we can use the session object to store some information that can be shared by everything in the same session. Okay, so this servlet does 2 things: generate a picture, send it back to the front end, and also save the 4 letters or the 4 alphanumerics into session object. You'll see more details later on. Then the next request coming from browser has 3 inputs: username, password, and a Captcha. In our case, it's Bingyang 123456 and that 5xb2 or something like that. So this request is accepted by another servlet called login servlet. The responsibility of this login servlet is to extract the 3 parameters and make sure it's the correct username, password, and Captcha. Okay, now where do I get username and password? So login servlet is going to talk to a backend database. Now in this case, we didn't have a database, so I was simply hard code username and password in this servlet. But in production, login servlet is talking to the database using select asterisk from users where username equal to Bingyang and password equal to 123456. If return is not empty, that means this user is correct, username and password. Then how do we verify Captcha? Remember, the user typed 4 alphanumerics as a Captcha string. And so this servlet is going to retrieve the Captcha code put in the session object by Captcha code servlet and compare the real one with the Captcha provided by the user. Now, if that's correct, if your username and password match, then This is number 7. Then number 8, login servlet will redirect us to a success page and also print our username. Now, on the other hand, if Captcha is not correct, or if username or password is not correct, login servlet will direct us to failure, or basically just direct us back to login.jsp and ask us to log in again. Of course, provide the error code. So that's the whole process, and we're going to implement this. Now that you have understand the login process, we're going to finish this one by one. Okay, we're going to start with Captcha code servlet. Now remember, the very first request is to request a Captcha picture, and this picture will be generated by Captcha code servlet. And servlet will return the picture and also save the real Captcha alphanumerics into session object. So let's do this first. So let me go to IntelliJ, and still on the project cookie session demo under edu tcu cs, there is a folder called servlet. Now under the servlet, I created 2 servlets. One is Captcha code servlet, and the other one is login servlet. So let's work on this first. So double click Captcha code servlet, and here is our servlet. So let's briefly walk through the code in Captcha code servlet. And the responsibility of the servlet is to generate an image that has 4 alphanumerics and also save it in the session. Okay, so don't worry too much about those code here. Those are pure Java code. In CS1 and CS2, we're creating an image in RAM, and also we set it to pink. We set the border to blue, and then this is our alphanumerics. We have lowercase, uppercase, and digits. Then we're going to use this for loop to generate or to randomly pick 4 characters from str, and then we use a string builder to concatenate them together. Okay, I'm using this string builder append, so we're going to append 4 times. Anyway, to make sure our job is easier, I'm going to comment out this for loop here. Now, basically, what happened here is in this loop, we're going to loop 10 times, and every time we loop, we're going to generate 2 random points on this image, and we're going to draw a line. So after the 10 loops, we're going to have 10 randomly drawn line disturb the picture, so to make it look like a Captcha. But since this is in development purpose, we're not going to add it there because it's really hard for me to read the code in Captcha. I don't know why, it's just very low resolution. And the last one is how we use Java 8 image.io write method to write this image in RAM as JPEG to this output. If you remember, we use response to write something back to the client side. This time we're using the output stream because the picture is not a character stream, so we have to use an output stream, change it to binary. But what we haven't done is we're going to save this string builder into our session. If you remember that later on, the login servlet needs to compare the Captcha from the user with the real Captcha string. So what we do here is we're going to save a copy of the Captcha string in session. So later on, this string will be retrieved by another servlet. Okay, so remember how we get a session is using request dot get session. So now we get the current session object. And remember, the session object is created automatically by Tomcat. We don't have to worry about it. All we need to do is how do we get it? And we're going to set attribute. And let's call this one, let's give it a name, and of course a value. The value is sb string builder dot toString. Now, of course, you can put this entire string builder object in there, but no, we just prefer to convert to a string, a 4-character string, and save it there. So either way. So I'm going to convert it to a string and put it there. Let's give this name. Let's call it Captcha in session. Okay, so this is the goat truth. That is, this is the Captcha. And we're going to compare this with the Captcha code provided by the user later on. All right, that's all we need to do for this Captcha code servlet. So number 2, generate Captcha code and save in session. Number 3 is done, then number 4. So let's look at the front end page, which is the login.jsp. We're going to make sure we have the right HTML tag to collect username, password, and Captcha. I have already provided the HTML code. As you can see, here we have some JavaScript. Now this script is used to request a new Captcha code picture, okay? And in this form, there is an action and there is a method. The action goes to login servlet. So later on, we're going to work on this login servlet. Now in this form, we have one input with name equal to username. The second input, so we got username, password, and Captcha. Make sure you remember those 3 names because later on we're going to retrieve them in login servlet. All right, so let's try to finish login servlet. So in login servlet, we need to do 4 things. Number 1, we need to get the 3 parameters, username, password, and Captcha from the request. Okay, so let's do that. So at this point, I'm sure everybody should know how to do this. Username, okay, username, and request.get parameter, password, and also request.get parameter Captcha. All right, good. So now we have the 3 strings. For example, username has Bing Yang, password is 1 2 3 4 5 6, and Captcha is any Captcha. Now the second part is that we're going to first verify Captcha code. Now I'm pretty sure that you guys know that if you provide correct username and password but wrong Captcha, guess what? Servlet won't even check your username and password. So the first thing to do is we're going to verify if the user provide the right Captcha. So let me make this one. Captcha from user. This should be camel case, from user. Okay, we're going to compare Captcha provided from user with the gold truth that we saved in session. How do we get stuff from session? Request.get session .get attribute. Now, if you remember, the attribute we saved in there is called, let me just copy and paste. Copy and paste. The return value is by default of type object. So what we should do is we're going to convert it to string because we saved a string there. There is another small thing here is once we get this Captcha from session, we need to immediately remove this attribute. Because if you know that one Captcha is used only once, okay, it cannot be reused. So if we verified, it is either correct or not correct. But either way, we're not going to reuse this Captcha anymore. So once we get this attribute from session, we're going to immediately remove it. Remove Captcha from session. And the way we remove it is very simple. Dot get session dot remove attribute. So this Captcha cannot be used again. All right, then we're going to, oh, it's right here, I'm sorry. Let me copy and paste it here. Then number 4 is we're going to check if this Captcha entered by the user is correct. As a Java programmer, you should know that every time you use the getter, something like get name or get age, in this case get attribute, there is a chance that this method returns null, null. Okay, so before we really compare the captchas, so first we have to make sure that the captcha we obtained from request.getSession.getAttribute is not null. Okay, so here if captcha session is not null, and we're going to compare captcha session dot equals ignore case. Now in my example, I don't really care about the case. Uppercase A, lowercase a is the same captcha. Okay, and then captcha from user. So we're comparing the gold truth with the user provided captcha. So if this is true, then the captcha is correct. Else, here is wrong captcha. Wrong captcha. Okay, we have to remind users that okay, you have to I'll give it a new captcha and retype the captcha number. So here is number 5. This means the captcha is correct. Now we need to verify username and password. Okay, so in practice, we really should talk to database, but here I'm simply just gonna hard code it. So if bingyang.equals, now in this case, I'm gonna use strict equals username and 1 2 3 4 5 6, that's a password dot equals ignore case password. So if this is true, that means we have correct username and password. Okay, now we should direct the user to success.jsp. So if you look at on the left side, I prepared a success.jsp. Okay, now look at this JSP. So here is div container, div jumbotron, and login success. This is hard coded. Welcome and secret is also hard coded. But there's one thing here, $, curly braces. Do you remember the notation here? This is called EL, right? This is called EL, expression language, EL in JSP. So this notation means I'm going to search the scope. Okay, if you remember that, we're going to search the scope. And there are several scopes. For example, we have request scope. We also have session scope and also application scope. There are 3 scopes. So I'm going to search this username in request, in session, and in application in this order. Now, if you have a username stored in request, then I'm going to get the value and use this value to replace this placeholder. Now, if I don't find any username in request, then I will go to session and see if we stored any username in session. If we find it, then I will use the value here to replace this. So in our case, it makes sense to store the username in session because once you're logged in, then you're logged in this session, right? So as long as the session is alive, then username and user should be there. So we're going to save username in session, and here we can simply just retrieve it from session. Okay, so how do we save something in session? Request dot get session dot set attribute. All right, and make sure this name here is the same as this name. So copy and paste, and the value is username, and this username is from here. I'm sorry, they're all called usernames. Okay, just make sure that in this context, username is what we get from get parameters. Okay, now here this username is a attribute we stored in session, and their username will be used in success.jsp here. Okay, now let me make them different so you guys know what I'm talking about. Here's a uname, and then that means I need to change this to uname. Okay, so after we saved uname in session, we're going to forward to success.jsp. Do you remember how to do forward? request.get request dispatcher. And in request dispatcher, we need to specify the target, right? Dot forward. Okay. When you forward, you also forward request and response. Okay. So correct username and password, forward to success page. Now, don't forget we have else, right? So this else here means wrong username or password. Okay. You really want to give some vague description, that is username or password wrong. Now let's look at login.jsp again, because once we have wrong username password or wrong captcha, we're gonna redirect to the same location, which is login.jsp. And we also want to show some message on this page, so user knows it is captcha wrong or username password wrong. So let me put some stuff right here. div, okay, so right about here, div, I'm going to put something called error message, error message. Okay, and probably let me reuse this class, but this time I'm going to change it to danger. Okay, so it would be red, and of course the role is alert. Now here I'm using an EL expression again to show what is in error message. So the content of this error message really depends on which else we're in. For example, here let's get a string error message equal to wrong username and password, and we're going to set it to, this time we're not going to put it in session because that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's simply just put it in request. Request dot set attribute. Now it's supposed to be error. Let me copy it. Make sure this is the same as error message. Copy and go to login servlet. Here, error message. Okay, and after this, we're going to dot. Let me just copy it. Copy this and paste. But this time we're not going to success, we're going to login. Okay, copy this entire thing here and paste down here. But I'm going to change the error message to wrong captcha. All right, let's go to login, login.jsp. So here, should put username Bingyang 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So first, let me show you the wrong. Let me just random one. So this is not the same. This is not the same one. It's not the correct captcha. So if I log in, I got this wrong captcha. I'm sorry, for some reason it doesn't pick up Bootstrap style, but actually I can see this. Okay, you can see this. Now this time I'm gonna put wrong username, but correct password, and also correct. Let me do it again. Okay, here is US00. Okay, and then sign login. And this time is the correct captcha, but wrong username and password. Then last, I'm going to test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now remember, when you test, just as I said, figure out all the happy path, all the possibilities, and verify them one by one. Okay, sometimes this will be very tedious, but for this simple one, we can exhaust all the possibilities. K4NZ. So if we log in, okay. Success. All right, we have a typo here, right? Success. So the important thing is don't have a typo. Okay. So Bingyang 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, MD D8. But really the uppercase lowercase doesn't matter. Now it's login success. Welcome Bingyang. We have done the majority of login process. We're almost there. We're going to have more add-ons to it. So first, let's see how we implement this secret A tag. So right now we're in success.jsp. So let's take a look at success.jsp and see how we embed this A tag in there. So if I open my IntelliJ and double click success, and in here we have login success, we have welcome, and this is the EL expression. And here we have A tag href equal to path of that JSP. Now here is a relative path, secret.jsp. Now the reason I can use secret.jsp is this JSP and success.jsp, one's here, they are siblings. That means they are directly under the same folder, which is web. So if I want to reference secret.jsp in success, I simply just use secret.jsp and vice versa. However, okay, just remember this, it is not considered as good practice to put something like this in a tag. In other words, we do not recommend we access JSP directly. Okay, there are exceptions. For example, index JSP, login JSP, no problem. Okay, the user can directly put them in URL in their browser and access them. Everything else should be done through a servlet. So that means if we want to access secret.jsp, we do not put it directly in this A tag. Here, I should replace this into a servlet, and the servlet will redirect to this JSP. So there are many reasons. Now, reason one is, for example, let's look at the success here. If the user type success.jsp, so for example, I'm going to clean all the cookies. Okay, clean all the cookies. And then I'm not going to log in servlet. I would simply type success.jsp. Nothing prevents your user type something in their browser and press enter, right? Now, if you remember our picture here, the picture. Now, the user is supposed to go to the login servlet. And once the servlet verifies the user's Captcha, username, and password, then login servlet will redirect to success.jsp. Now this time, user says, hey, I'm not going to go to login servlet. I will go directly to the .jsp. And it is possible. Nothing prevents user just hand type them in here. So once I press return, and guess what? You can view all the static hard-coded stuff there. But what happened here? Where is the username or the uname? It's not there because this request does not go through login servlet. So servlet doesn't have a chance to put username in the session. So we discourage, accessing JSP directly. But you're like, how can you prevent user type in JSP in this address bar? Okay, there is one way you can do it, and it's considered as good practice. Is we move everything but index and login under web info. Okay, web info. Now everything under web info folder, this is a very special folder, cannot be accessed to public. Okay, so let's do it now. So I will right click web info. I will new a directory that's called JSP, and I'm going to put all my JSP, except index and login, because we really want user to access index and login because there's no secret over there. We're going to drag them into JSP under web info. Okay, so I'm going to type login.jsp. I'm trying to access success.jsp under web info JSP. So as you know that success.jsp is under JSP, is under web info, right? And I'm going to press return. It is protected. So in other words, user cannot access anything you put under web info. So it's always a good practice to put all your JSP files, the JSP files that have EL expressions under web info. Okay, now since we moved success.jsp under web info, we also need to modify login success. because here in login success, we assumed success.jsp is right under web. Now it is different, right? Now it is different. So what we do is we're going to change this to web info JSP. Okay, so within the server, we can access web info. Okay, so there's no problem. But for the browser have no access to this. Okay. Let's come back to success again. It's not recommended to put JSP directly here, and as a result, we're going to put a servlet request. And the servlet is cookie session demo. This is the context path. It's supposed to be the same as the name of the project. And then there is a URL for a servlet. It's called show secret servlet. I haven't created servlet yet, but this is the path. So it's recommended that we put servlet path in a tag, not the JSP path. Okay. So let's create one. Under servlet, right-click, new a Java class. I will call this secret servlet. Give it URL, and the URL is supposed to be show secret servlet. All right, and there's only one thing that this servlet is doing is simply just forward to dot get request dispatcher web inf JSP / secret.jsp dot forward request and response. That's it. I know this is tedious, okay? I know this is tedious, but we really want a servlet, just like this picture. We really want a servlet in front of a JSP. We do not want browser to access the JSP directly. We want it to access servlet first, and servlet will forward or redirect to a JSP. Okay. So now we're logged in success, and if press secret, if you look at the lower left corner, it says localhost 8080 cookie session demo. This time we're not accessing the JSP directly. We're accessing a servlet called show secret servlet. And once I click this one, that servlet will serve my request. And basically what it does is simply just forward us to secret.jsp. So if I press it, as you can see here, we didn't really show you the JSP, but we show you the servlet. But this page is really secret.jsp. We're almost there. There is a very last topic, okay, for this login process. So we have already implemented the login process. So we make sure the user is log in first, and then we can access secret. So that's the process, okay, step 1, step 2. But remember, as I always said, nothing prevents the user from typing a URL or servlet path directly in this address bar. So for example, right now I'm logged out, right? I haven't logged in, right? So for example, if I go to login servlet, okay, type it directly, and I press enter, and it says wrong Captcha. Okay, wrong Captcha. So that means I haven't logged in yet. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type show secret servlet. Okay, and I press enter. Okay, now remember, I have not logged in. Okay, in other words, I'm not supposed to get being on secret, right? So press enter. I can access all the secrets without logging in. Now this violates the login process, because in the login process, we're supposed to go to login.jsp, put username and password, Captcha, and then go to login servlet. Login servlet verifies everything and redirect us to success.jsp, and from there we can, access show secret. Okay, so if all user can do is using mouse and cursor, click, 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 that's good, no problem. But as I said, nothing prevents the user from typing this directly in the address bar. So that means this servlet is not username and password protected. Okay, so what should we do? So let's come back to IntelliJ. So this is the servlet. Now it looks like before we show secret.jsp, or serve this JSP to the browser, we should really verify username and password here. Okay, so that's one way to do it, is for every servlet here. So imagine that later on we have 50 features. That means maybe we have 50 or even 100 servlets here. So for every single servlet, we need to copy and paste the same code to verify username and password. So every time there's a request coming in, we're going to select asterisk from users, where username is equal to Bingyang and password equal to 1234556 to see if you're logged in. That's just tedious. Okay, that's tedious. We can use session, right? And actually in login servlet, we verify it once and we save username into session. So actually all we need to do here is not verify username and password, but verify if there is uname in session. Okay, so because in login we saved username in uname in session, right? So before we serve secret, we're going to verify. So for example here, request dot get session, request dot get session dot get attribute uname. Okay, uname, and we're going to convert it to string. Tedious. Uname, and we're going to say if uname is not null and uname dot is not empty. Okay, so first of all, uname not null. Okay, there is an instance, and uname cannot have length 0. If this is true, we can serve this. Otherwise, else we should kick this user to login.jsp. Just redirect to login.jsp, or an error page says, hey, you haven't logged in yet. But remember, that means you have to do this for every single servlet. You're going to have this verification, right? Which is kind of tedious. I don't want to do this. So Java provides a solution. It's called a filter. Okay, and filter will actually capture the request before it arrives to a single servlet. So here is how we do it. So we can come back, okay, make sure everything is as usual, and leave it here. We don't have to modify this servlet. Close it. We're going to create a Java filter. Okay, so right-click edu tcu cs, new a Java class. I want to call this a filter. Let's call this login filter. Okay, make it self-explanatory. Login filter. And this time, this guy is going to extend not servlet, because this is a very special servlet. It's called HTTP filter. It's also from javax.servlet.http. Press enter. And here, we're going to add an annotation. Web, not web servlet, but web filter. And in web filter, we're going to specify the address is /**. So if you remembered on day one, we talked about servlet. I talked about what this means, right? That one means it captures all the requests. So basically what happened here is filter stands, if you look at this picture here, filter stands in front of all the servlets. So all the request goes to filter first, and once filter says okay, then the request will be passed to the servlet behind the filter. Think of the filter as a traffic cop. So all the traffic comes to filter first, and filter would decide to accept or even reject. So it stands in front of all the servlets. And there is a method that we need to override. It's called do filter. Okay, do filter. All right, there are a lot of things coming in here. Do filter. So we're going to print filter starts working. Filter starts working. Okay. Sorry. Here request dot get session dot get attribute uname. And if you remember what we did before is we're going to retrieve this uname and make sure it's not empty, right? Oh, I shouldn't have deleted those. So uname is not equal to null and not is empty. Yeah, that's right. So if this is true, then what we should do is the user has already logged in. So we should let go this request. And here's the syntax: chain dot do filter, and we pass request and response. Okay, that's how we let it go. Now else, that one means the user has not logged in yet. So we should what? Should get request dot, okay, don't have to come here, and request dot get request dispatcher login.jsp dot forward request and response. We're going to restart it. Okay, so there are some problems. Now look at here. Where is my Captcha? Okay, I fixed a typo here. This is supposed to be ERRMSG. Okay, so now I'm going to launch my application and test. Here is the index page. So it's really weird because it says you must log in first. This is the first time I come here. I'm not trying to access some secret or hand type something over there, but it shows you must log in first. Also, where is my Captcha image? It looks like I didn't get anything. Okay? But let me test something else. So for example, I'm going to show secret and press enter. That's expected. But it looks like the filter filters out everything, even this request here, right? And we do not want the filter to filter out this because I do not need login to get a Captcha picture, right? And I do not need login to go to index page. For example, here, if I go to index.jsp, because this is supposed to be the home page, right? No login needed. So if I press enter, I'm being redirected to here. So I have no access to index. Do you remember? We have index.jsp that have 3 languages you can speak. So tell the filter what are the exceptions. So do not filter this exceptions. So here is what should I do? So first, I'm going to have a URI. Based on the URI, I'm going to tell if I filter or not filter. Get request URI. So if the URI is equal to equals there are several things I need to do. Number one is / cookie session demo. Okay, so if the request URI is equal to this, that means I want to access the root, which is the home page, index.html. Or where's my or? Or URI dot contains index.jsp or URI dot contains let's say login, right? We do not want to filter login. So if it's login, then we'll let it go. Login. Or URI dot contains login servlet. I know it's a lot. Or URI dot contains everything under CSS. So all those static resources we need to let go. Dot contains everything under JS. Okay, everything under here, CSS and JS, or URI dot contains. Okay, so it's very, very long, right? It's very, very long. So if this is true, then we will let go. If user is requesting the above URI, the filter should let go this request without blocking it. Okay, without blocking it. We don't need login to access those. Else, okay, else we need to verify. So copy and paste in here. Okay, I know this is a little bit complex, so let me explain again. So when we do filter for every single request, the request first goes to do filter method, all right? And we're gonna get the request URI, and based on what this URI is, we determine to filter or not filter. Okay, so there are exceptions that we do not filter. So if the user is requesting this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, then we do not verify login status, because you don't need login to go to index.jsp or login.jsp, or requesting CSS or JavaScript or Captcha, right? You don't need login, so we let it go. So this is the syntax to let it go. Otherwise, everything else we need login. How do we verify if a user has logged in or not? Because when we logged in, we put something in session. So now if we're trying to verify you're logged in or not, we're going to get this thing to see if it has value in it. If it has value, we let it go, no problem, you pass the filter. Otherwise, we have an error message and redirect you back to login. So let me test this. So it takes a while. Now this time, as you can see, I go to index page and I can see this index page, right? So if I go here, index.jsp, no problem, right? And if I go to login.jsp, see, okay, so the filter is not filtering out the Captcha request, okay? But if I'm trying to go to show secret.servlet and press enter, it says you must log in first, okay? Now, okay, let me log in. I'm going to change one. This is W7UT and press login. Now I log in success. Okay, I log in success, and I can access secret. I'm here. I'm good, because once I logged in, the login servlet is saving a uname in session. Okay, and filter is trying to verify, do we have a uname in session? If you have a uname in session, that means you're logged in. Okay. By the way, one thing I didn't talk about today is how do we log out, okay? How do we log out? There should be a servlet called logout, right? Basically what you do is you simply just delete the session or invalidate the session, okay? All right, so that's all for cookie and session. Hope you guys enjoy this online course, okay? And see you next time.